Welcome back to Street Level Marketing. My name is Mark, and I'm here with Shannon Richardson, and we're talking about now we're going to get into patient-centric marketing. That's always a tongue tire, And Shannon and I both have a little bit of experience in this because we both did marketing. We ran marketing campaigns and business development campaigns in the oncology space, and you really got to prioritize empathy and patient needs when you're talking about something as sensitive as cancer. What does it mean to create truly patient-centric marketing in healthcare?
I think it's identifying what it is that your patients are saying and seeing. Particularly, like you said, we were in the oncology space, which is can be very traumatic. It's a life-altering diagnosis. Cancer is always a life-altering diagnosis for any patient, but not just for the patients, but for their families as well. It affects so many different facets of our lives. So I think being able to hear exactly what it is that these patients are going through is very beneficial. One of the primary things that helped us when we were doing it, because it's such a close to the heart and such a big, such a just a diagnosis that affects everything. A lot of people that are going through that build very close relationships with their physicians and with the staff in their offices. They're seeing them on a very regular basis. I think people want consistency, so they enjoy seeing those same faces when they come into the office, which is great. And in doing so, it allows us to build a relationship where we can kind of really find out from them in a candid and honest way what some of the challenges are that they are going through, what it is they're experiencing. And a lot of them have been more than willing to share their stories with us.
Yeah. How can marketers ensure their campaigns resonate with patients facing serious diagnoses?
One of the great things that you and I think did was we actually utilized some of our patients in some of our marketing campaigns. I know we did a few commercials where we actually had real patients that came in. We didn't just take a story and hire actors to come in and reiterate something that was written down on a piece of paper. We had people that actually went through the process, that were a part of the experience, and we actually used them in some of our TV commercial spots and some of our print advertisements. We utilize them. Another thing that's been beneficial that I've done recently, or my company now has done, is we've had patients that have benefited from our services that have actually come in and not just marketed to the community or to other patients, but have marketed to us internally. We don't see every case that comes through. We don't know every patient that comes through, especially when you're part of a large organization. But we've actually started bringing in some of the patients that are having positive responses and bringing them in and having them speak to our team to say, look, this is what I was going through. This is the process this is what happened to me. This is the process that I went through for this entire thing. And this is how beneficial your organization was in helping me get through this entire thing. It helped getting me back to a healthy state.
Yeah, I think, some of the best ad campaigns we did at Merrill, in the cancer space were with real patients that went through that.
Yeah.
You can't, that empathy, that feeling,
you can't fake it.
You can't fake that. Yeah. It's got to be real. What's the role of storytelling in making marketing more human and relatable?
Not fabricating anything. I'm not a fan of drafting stories that are just supposed to be, supposed to be crafted and creatively. I want to use real stories. I want to go through real patient experiences and utilize those to make sure that that's what we're getting across. One of the key things is, everybody that's going through a diagnosis, cancer diagnosis, heart failure diagnosis, whatever it may be, a serious diagnosis, they're going to feel isolated at some point, and they're going to feel like, oh my God, this is happening to me. I can't believe this is happening to me. But they're not the first person that it's happened to. It's happened hundreds of thousands of times to other people before, and other people have gotten through this. So hearing a story that resonates with you because you're going through something that someone else already went through is very beneficial. So I'm a huge advocate of utilizing true stories to make sure that people can relate to exactly what it is that we're trying to get across.
What are some of the risks of getting patient-centric marketing wrong? And, how can you avoid that?
I think one of the risks you run is, well, obviously we need to make sure that the patients are comfortable with sharing their story. And I think we've had one or two that initially thought they were comfortable with it. And then once we got them in front of the camera and got them focused on things, it didn't come together. Just because they were still processing things and they had limits to what they wanted to share. And it's, you have to be, I'm a huge believer that when you're running these campaigns, you have to be very upfront, very open and honest. So if a patient's not ready to share their story, then that's not the story to share. I think those are the ones that, they may think that they want to share their story because they think they can help somebody else, but they may not have processed what it is that they're going through fully yet. So I definitely think it's key that they're in a place where they're comfortable and they're ready to share what's happened to them with the rest of the world. Because it's not just sharing with one or two people. It's going to be shared with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing too, when I did a lot of behavioral and mental health marketing,
Yep.
and when we use patients or when I instructed, the marketing teams to do that, I always told them, make sure you don't pick somebody that just got finished treatment and then put them in an ad campaign or a commercial, and then they're not actually better, and it can actually cause a negative impact if depending on the individual, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong there. So you got to make sure that they're really well, before you're utilizing them in their marketing campaigns.
Without a doubt. I think, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it, when someone says, hey, we want to use you for a TV spot, it can sound exciting and it can sound cool and it's interesting. So, people want to be a part of that experience. And sometimes we have to assess whether or not they're ready to be a part of that experience, regardless of whether or not they think they're ready to be a part of that experience. And, sometimes that's part of we're going to take 6 or 7 stories and we're going to look at each one individually and meet with each person individually and see which we think would be the most ready to share.
Not to mention, they really got to understand everybody is going to see this.
Oh yeah.
So are you ready to talk to everybody about the situation that you went through? And a lot of times
you in the hallway. Yeah.
You go into the store, they're like, I saw you on, the TV, oh my God.
Without a doubt.
How can marketers collaborate with the clinical teams to ensure authenticity in campaigns?
The clinical teams typically have the most time with the patients. The physicians have a fair amount of time. Us as the business development team, we really have the least amount of time probably with patients until we've identified them as someone we want to collaborate with. So I think that team probably has the most time with the patients. So they're going to be the ones that are going to be really the key point of contact and saying, hey, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Johnson, I think they would have a great story to share. So it's really a matter of making sure that they know exactly what it is that we're looking for and that they are comfortable with bringing those patients to us. If they see something that they think could be a good share point that they feel patients in the community would benefit from, by all means, bring it to us. We would love to talk with patient X, Y, or Z and see if it's an opportunity to get their story out there.
Thinking about, especially with the business of healthcare, how do you balance the business goals with the ethical considerations of marketing to vulnerable patients?
It's very difficult. And I think that's why most industries have a bit of, they try to separate the business side of things from the patient side of things. Typically, when you go into one of these offices, you're going to see the clinical staff and you're going to see the physician, but there's typically an office somewhere on the other side of town that handles the business side or the administrative side of things. And those processes are kept separate intentionally, which can be beneficial, but it also can put up roadblocks because at that point, the goals from both sides can be different. And we want to make sure that we're offering the highest level of care to patients, and we want to make sure that we're offering the best level of service possible. And from a business side of things, you have to be aware of the fact that we also have to make sure that we're keeping the bills paid and we're keeping everything financially stable, or we won't have a story to tell. So it's really a matter of finding strong leadership within the organization that's able to balance and be that go-between from the clinical side to the business side of things.
What are some of the metrics marketers can use to evaluate the impact of patient-focused campaigns?
Obviously, if you see an uptick in volume or patient volume or appointment requests or inquiries, that's one of the key things. For me, one of the biggest things we always look for was if a new patient came in, and of course, how did you know about us? How did you know about our practice? If they say, oh, my neighbor was a patient of yours, or I have a sister-in-law that was a patient of yours, and they spoke to that person about how beneficial our service was to them, that's always a huge win. People typically, if someone has a cancer diagnosis or potential cancer diagnosis or whatever it may be, they're going to talk to their family probably, or family and friends probably at the same time that they're starting to schedule appointments and starting to get all of their follow-ups taken care of. And as they're speaking to their family and friends, they're going to hear stories about how other people have gone through things that they may not have even known about, and what experiences they had. And those definitely that's always been one of the key things for me. If someone is sharing the high level of service we were able to offer to them, and they have another patient that comes in because of that level of service, that's one of the biggest wins we can have in this industry.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time. We're going to have to go to another commercial break. But when we come back, I want to talk about like some cross-industry lessons. You have some experience in other areas of marketing, specifically in sports. So I want to talk about, how some of those experiences can relate back and forth when we come back with a word from our sponsors.